Hey folks, welcome back to KingMakers, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course stream for fun. Today we're going over Gaming News Consolidated. This is February 23rd through March 1st. And boy, this week is full. We're going to talk about Fable. We're going to talk about Warner Brothers games. They just can't stay out of the news. We're also going to talk about a major thing going on with Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I'm sure you've heard about. We're also going to talk about Stardew a little bit, Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. We're also PlayStation Plus Essential games coming. We're also going to talk about Tomb Raider 4 in the Remaster Collection Volume 2, which is quite frustrating. We're going to talk about the Pokemon presentation. We're also going to talk about Yakuza Hawaii and how Monster Hunter Wilds is doing. And then someone is selling Pokemon Go, like the entire game division, which is kind of crazy, and more. And we're also at the end going to talk about games coming in March. So there's a lot here. This is what I do every week is I just take time to look over videos, read over articles. Normally about 10 hours is pumped into this or so every week. And then I present it to you all in one place for you guys to be able to just listen to it as a podcast. There's, of course, something as well on the screen just for something for you to look at. But yeah, this is going to be probably an hour or over an hour. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. All right, Fable will be delayed to 2026. It's possible that this may need more polish. It's also possible that there's too many games coming in 2025. And so the devs that are doing it have normally made, of course, the Forza Horizon games. And so this is kind of a new project for them. So that might be a little bit more challenging as they've also used the engine for something they've never really built before. Maybe there's been some games in the past, but generally speaking, with how much things have been, reduced down and new talent coming in, there's going to be people that are maybe used to working on a racing sports game that are now making something entirely different with maybe even an engine they still haven't used before. So, yeah, there might be a little bit of a struggle coming onto this, so we're not entirely sure. We don't have any more info at this time, but we'll probably learn the release date either later, later this year, maybe like the Game Awards would be kind of my guess, somewhere in there. But definitely by next January at the Xbox Dev Showcase. But yeah, that's kind of frustrating because, again, it's been a really, really long time since we've had a Fable game. They are beloved by the older generation, by the millennials, because as we were kids, we grew up with them. And so I'm not entirely sure what they're planning to do to get the younger generations in there. But yeah, we'll see how the game is. And yeah, I hope it's good. I hope there's some innovation there. Even the alpha gameplay actually looks fairly good, but it is just alpha footage, so there's not much we can actually see there, etc. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, this is a really big story that's in 3 parts for Warner Brothers games. And as I said before, they just can't stay out of the news. So first, the Wonder Woman game is canceled. We had a trailer in 2021. We haven't had anything since. And what we're hearing is that the game is going in a direction that veteran devs basically didn't like, and so they left and started their own studio called Cliffhanger Games in 2021. They're working on the Black Panther game that's coming under EA. And so Wonder Woman was basically rebooted, and all of the leads, all of the main directors for the studio at Monolith, they actually all left to make Cliffhanger Games, and as well also taking some of the devs with them. Some of the devs wanted to go with. We saw the same thing with Rocksteady when they were making Suicide Squad, and when the co-founders left to make 100 Star, they also took quite a few devs with them, and 100 Star's goal is, again, to have 100 devs, and that's actually kind of where Cliffhanger Games is. I think it's slightly bigger. But yeah, this is not a uncommon thing that's happening in the industry. People get fed up and they just go somewhere else or make their own studio. And while that is a risk, I think it's better overall for the gaming industry. And so yeah, just all of these issues with Wonder Woman, it's just not going the right way. There's been a lot of struggles as well with the game. Even just changes to the Nemesis system with kind of like a friendship simulator. Now, of course, that sounds worse than what we normally had, of course, with Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. But the idea was like, you could be able to work with enemies and you could kind of have a certain play style, and then the game would learn kind of how you play to be able to make things easier, or make it easier to take down bigger enemies. Maybe like holding them and freeze them in place, or stunning them in some fashion, so that you could actually work on getting some hits in there if you were a heavy melee guy. And so yeah, it's not perfect, not as bad as it sounds, but still definitely not exactly what we were wanting. And then the other crazy thing, it's so far Wonder Woman has roughly cost about $100 million so far with this development. I mean, we're looking at like I think 6 years, and there's nothing to show for it. Like, man, that's bad, and that's another $100 million. So we're looking at over $400 million now that Warner Brothers has lost basically, and not had a return on in a year. Like, this is crazy. Like, you've lost $400 million in 12 months, basically, that is not going to be having a return. And then you still don't have too much coming out anyway in the name of 2025. And this is why Haddad is gone. Like, he's been fired. He'll work during the transition or whatever, but they're going to have someone else come in for their game division. Because, yeah, this is getting ridiculous. Like, you just can't keep losing money. We also got to see this with some other publishers and some other game studios, and including even Sony. I mean, good grief, they're working on removing multiple CEOs over there and senior executives, and making all of the changes on April 1st, the start of their fiscal year. So, yeah, this is just, the trend following has not been good. It's been awful. It's been awful. The other piece of news coupled with this, of course, is that Monolith Games is actually closing. So this is about 170 employees that are being laid off. Monolith was bought by Warner Brothers in 2004. And this is pretty crazy because, again, they made Shadow of Mordor and the War games. And those were receptively generally pretty good. Now, War had loot boxes, which was a heavy push. They even locked basically, the true end game of Shadow of War behind loot boxes, unless you wanted to just grind dozens and dozens of hours, which is ridiculous. And so, yeah, people said no. So after about a year and a half, they took the loot boxes out. Same with like Star Wars Battlefront, roughly around the same time. But like Shadow of Mordor won Game of the Year in 2014. Like, that's wild. But it's just like, it's not the same studio anymore, and that's pretty depressing. And but yeah, we're looking at 2017 to 2025, and Monolith has had nothing to show for it. Maybe they kind of pitched Wonder Woman a little early so that maybe they wouldn't get closed down, because they were seeing maybe what was kind of happening in the gaming industry already. We started being made aware of it as gamers in 2022 with what would you call it? Quality assurance folks. But yeah, it's just been getting worse ever since. And 2025 is starting with a real banger. Just already some studio closures, some leadership changing within companies, and then also devs still being laid off. So we're already looking at roughly 1,500 devs have already lost their jobs this year, and we're just starting March, baby. So let's just keep the train going, right? This is crazy. Yeah, we're not really slowing down at all. On top of this, Warner Brothers is also closing Player First, which is roughly 70 employees. They made Multiverse. Again, they were bought in 2024, and within less than, I think, July 2024. Within less than a year, they're already being just closed down and being done. They're also closing Warner Brother Games San Diego. And I was going to look them up, but they've already been wiped from Wiki. So it's like, well, okay, there's not much I can talk about that. That's roughly 40 devs. Which is quite small. They were also kind of more, I think, a support studio or maybe mobile games, but yeah, they're just being removed as well. And Warner Brothers says that they're focusing on Hogwarts Legacy, Batman, Mortal Kombat, and again, it's just stuff that's already made money, and so that's what they're pushing for, is just following the dollar, of course. And I'm not overly excited about these because there's no passion in that. There's no passion in chasing money. And the real issue is that Warner Brothers is starting to fall into irrelevancy, I feel like Ubisoft and also like EA and even Activision Blizzard. All these three other companies, I mean, they've just made games that are just frustrating their audience, repeatedly frustrating their audience, whether it's Call of Duty or Football Club or Madden or Star Wars Outlaws or Assassin's Creed, whatever. And it's just been a frustrating mess. it's just been a mess. And it's like these publishers really need to start figuring this stuff out, because you can't keep messing up all of your IPs ultimately. I mean, even EA messed up their last Battlefield game, 2042, and while they're trying to show that things are different, I want to see it first with my own eyes. So you can guarantee I'm actually going to be covering Battlefield when it releases, because I love that franchise. I love it way more than Call of Duty. And but oh my gosh, I mean, between Black Ops 6 and the last Battlefield, I would rather play Call of Duty, honestly, but not for very long because of that skill-based matchmaking. It just freaking sucks. It's the worst it's ever been. So yeah, we have all of these games that are just becoming a frustration, and so when you just keep getting burned all the time, like in a bad relationship, well, eventually you just don't want to stay there. And this is the irrelevancy that I'm talking about. And Warner Brothers is starting to find this mess, because we've also had Gotham Knights. That wasn't very exciting. Suicide Squad was, I think, one of the biggest letdowns. It was actually my worst game of the year, believe it or not, because it was just so freaking bad. And yeah, I even showed just the beginning of the game. It's like, wow, this is like, are you serious? This is the game that you made? Oh my gosh, this is horrific. And then it's like these pieces of garbage, they take years and years to make, even almost a decade in some cases. And boy, this has got to stop, because you can't keep losing $400+ million a year on failed projects. You know what I mean? So yeah, we'll see. We'll keep track of Hogwarts Legacy, their Batman game, the next Mortal Kombat, and whatever else they're working on. But boy, yeah, they really need to get their stuff figured out, because if people just don't care anymore, man, that's going to be the end of that, and that's going to be brutal. And ultimately, too, it's like I just think American studios or the West, like including Europe, they just need to wake up. Okay, even Ubisoft over in France, it's like, how much longer can they go before they're completely broke? And like Ubisoft isn't looking good, EA wasn't looking good with a lot of their games, and it's like the reality is that people just have less money, and they're going to choose what they'd rather play, and that's ultimately going to be Eastern games, like over in China and Japan and South Korea, and it's like that's what people would rather play. And we're going to show another game here fairly soon when I have access here on Xbox, is we're going to be showing Mecha Break. And that'll be a free-to-play game. I'm excited to show that to you, but just a totally different feel, and you guys will know exactly what I mean when we start playing that game, because, again, it's focused toward their audience, and they know who their audience is, and it feels good to be appreciated as a player. We'll see how the monetization is. I am a little worried about that, but that'll be something that we'll be taking a look at. And, yeah, when we take a look at American-funded games, like the last game of the year that an American-funded game had was actually Overwatch 1 back in 2016. Like, we're talking 10 years ago almost. This is crazy, and this was actually done by Blizzard before I think they merged with Activision. So, yeah, and then ultimately they both got bought up by Microsoft in the 2020s. So yeah, these American studios, they need to understand who their audience is. And we've talked about this too on the channel. And it's just like, look, if your audience is not happy, they're not going to buy your game, right? I think Capcom's going to have that next problem with their next Monster Hunter game. And we'll talk about that too. But I think the only real shot for a game of the year out of an American studio and publisher is going to be GTA 6. And that's supposed to be coming at the end of the year, but it's March and we still don't even have a release date, which is kind of weird. And when there's news on that, we'll bring you more. So yeah, Warner Brothers is just getting a swirly in the toilet right now, and they honestly deserve it, because they have no idea what they're doing. So hopefully their new person, whoever they're going to be taking over the game direction at Warner Brothers, is going to get some stuff figured out. And yeah, I'll keep you updated to date on all of that. Next, let's talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows. It had a full leak. A full leak of the game. Like, you just can't catch a break, man. Like, we've been covering this game for, like, what, 8 months now? And it's already had 2 delays, and this is really bad. We don't know how many, but they're findable online. And these are, like, legit copies, okay, that were, like, stored in a warehouse somewhere. These are all physical copies. And you would think that these necessarily wouldn't be playable, but yeah, something's up with whatever. And these are generally PlayStation copies. They're not like Xbox But yeah, these are generally PlayStation copies that are being sold, and the game does actually run. There's actually some video out there of just starting up to the main menu and running the game, and Lucas Stevens, having played it, he was actually able to confirm that, yeah, that is the startup screen. Like, that's crazy. And, man, I mean, yeah, they just cannot catch a break. So Ubisoft did officially make a statement about this. This is just further confirming that this is real. And, yeah, basically, please don't buy it. Please don't stream it, whatever. There is definitely some strikes happening on YouTube and streaming and whatever. They're doing their best to try to keep it off. But again, they got to try to hold off for a month. And again, we don't know how many games, how many physical copies are actually out there. But on some of the bigger channels, they're talking about, some of folks in the comments talking about that they're seeing it in like Japan, they're seeing it in like Iraq, they're seeing it in America, Australia, like they're seeing it all over the place. So there's got to be quite a few copies out there. And this is bad. The most we've seen for a copy sell so far is like a couple $100. So it's nothing like, the only copy of No Man's Sky, that sold for like over $1,000. But again, there's also a lot more copies out there. But still, people are making some money with a stolen product. And yeah, man, what a mess. What a mess. So honestly, I couldn't find one for sale. Maybe they're all gone by now. I haven't seen any streams. And I haven't, and this is all too before review copies. Usually review copies are like within 2 weeks of release, give or take. And so, yeah, we don't even have the review copies yet. We should be getting those pretty soon. And then they're, of course, going to talk about the review copies within a few days before launch. But like this, they just, they just can't freaking win, man. So yeah, that is horrific. And, while I don't necessarily want Ubisoft to win because I hate the direction that they're going, I can still feel for them for this because this, at least from a business standpoint and a company working hard to make a game that they believed people were going to like or that was going to be acceptable to society, etc., whatever. And they just cannot catch a break. But ultimately, they've been doing it to themselves. And I hope the rest of the industry is paying attention because it's like, okay, do you have the message now? Like, these games are not making money. Just end with the, societal class type of stuff. And let's just make some good video games. So let's talk about Tomb Raider 4. It's actually unfinished. Now, this is shocking to me because Volume 1 Remastered was done by Saber Interactive. And it's the same dev team that was working on Volume 2 for the Tomb Raider collection. And yeah, Tomb Raider 4 is unfinished. The devs know this, and they're working on it, but they've missed some actual remastered textures. So you'll be in your remaster view, right? Because you can switch back and forth if you guys don't know. But yeah, you could be in the remaster view for your game running around, and you will see some PlayStation 1 textures, and you'll be like, what is going on? And it's not like this is necessarily an isolated incident completely. There's a few places where there are some problems. I haven't seen them myself. I haven't gotten far enough into the game, but they do know that this is a thing and that they are working on fixing it. But I am pretty surprised by this because of how good Volume 1 was. It does make me think back to some of the texture issues that I saw back in Tomb Raider 2, especially. And that was in Venice, and I pointed it out actually in my playthrough while I was streaming that. It was just like, look, that does not look complete. Like, that actually looks worse than looking at like the rest of the stuff that's done in the game. So maybe they missed it. Maybe it just looked good enough that people didn't notice because, again, that game was kind of shadowy in some places anyway. But yeah, this is really kind of surprising. So, even Saber Interactive is seemingly kind of dropping the ball here. Or could it be Embracer Group, the ultimate owner and publisher, or Saber, Aspire, pushing out the game before it's ready, forcing it to come out before it's ready. And it's not like we also haven't seen that before. So I'm just kind of curious, like, which one is it, So, yeah, it's just pretty surprising. So far, with the few levels that I've actually played with Tomb Raider 4, everything looks great. Everything operates pretty well. And it's a really well done remaster, in my opinion. The only thing that I still complain about is that the cinematics or the cutscenes, they are not really remastered in any shape or form. And it's truly frustrating and annoying because it just breaks that immersion of just the rest of the remastered game. You just go into that and you're like, ugh. It's just like watching puke on the floor. So it's pretty awful. And we know too that there was definitely a kind of a lot more work put into Tomb Raider 4, and I'm assuming also into Chronicles and the Angel of Darkness when we get there. Because yeah, we're looking at like there's just some extra things added this time. Like when Laura jumps to grab onto something, she actually splays her fingers, like spreads her fingers out to catch instead of it all just being one uniform piece, right, for her hand. And so that's a redone model that we haven't seen yet in Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3, and we see that now this time in number 4, which is awesome. And then also, too, the 3D textures on some of the door panels. Instead of just being a flat surface, they've actually worked on making a three-dimensional image of like a carving on a door or whatever, or like even some increased stuff with the statues a little bit. And this is actually really cool, but this does also take more time. So I wonder if they just kind of ran out of time and Embracer was not willing to wait, and they ultimately just pushed Volume 2 out anyway. Which, again, would be frustrating. It's like, look, have an extra 3 months, just get it done. We want this to sell well, because as soon as you start doing that, you start losing trust with the rest of your consumer base, and people are more likely to actually wait for a sale than buy it at full price, and that's going to cut into your sales. And some people just might skip it entirely, depending on what's up. So this, again, is incredibly frustrating, and the publishers, man, you guys, if you guys are listening at all, like, you really need to pay attention to this, that your consumer base, the trust is fragile, and you cannot mess this up. You have to, keep the trust of your player base, otherwise you're not going to be selling much, and you're going to be selling less next time. And I mean, look at EA, look at Ubisoft, look at Activision Blizzard, okay, with all of their types of games. Like, they are just making a mess of their IPs, and we don't need more of that. And I think, too, this is also going to happen with the next Monster Hunter Wilds game. Because Monster Hunter Wilds, man, it has some issues, and yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. Also, too, if you're interested in the Tomb Raider playthrough, wanting to watch it, I actually have everything in a couple of playlists. You can watch the Volume 1 remasters if you'd like in a playlist on YouTube at Gaming Garbage 22. And then I've started a new playlist for Volume 2 remaster also on the channel, so you can find those. Let's talk about PlayStation Plus Essential Games for March. There's basically 35 million of you, so there's quite a few of you out there. And this month you get Veilguard. Yay! We all love that game. You also get Sonic Colors, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Cowabunga Collection. So there's a few good games in there. And yeah, that's kind of it. So yeah, Veilguard's the big one. Another failure. That's wonderful. In February, of which you can still get until March 3rd. So I would check today. But you can get Payday 3, High on Life, and Pac-Man World Repack. Again, none of those are like particularly great or like huge bangers. High on Life is probably the best one out of that. And Payday 3 definitely has had some major patches, and they are trying to gain the trust of their players again. But yeah, there's also so much stuff to already play out there. So if you're interested, you can also pick those up as well. And then in January, we had Suicide Squad kill the gaming industry. So yeah, just some wonderful games that they're giving to you this year so far. I can't wait for April. Like, I hope it's like Dustborn or something at this point. I mean, they're just handing you guys trash, generally speaking. But you guys are the lowest paid tiers, so I don't know. Take that for what you will. Let's talk about Stardew Valley. They're celebrating 9 years this week, and they had an update for the Nintendo Switch players. So far, there's been 26 million copies sold on PC. There's been 8 million on Switch. And there's been a total of 41 million copies sold for the game. The guy has made so much unbelievable money. That's like over $1 billion by now in actual sales. And he does say that the Haunted Chocolatier is not abandoned, yet the focus is still Stardew Valley. So if you've been waiting for the Haunted Chocolatier, just like my wife, this is kind of frustrating because, again, they announced that game so long ago, and then there's just like really no work done on it. And we get this also repeatedly too in the industry. This is why it bothers me. It's like, okay, we're announcing a game that's not coming out, for 2 years, and oh, guess what? It's delayed now, and so we get another 6 months or a year to wait, and oh man, we're having some struggles, and like life is hard, and so it's, yeah, man, for some of these games, like Good and Evil 2, that's going to be like we're getting close to, I think, 15 years now, waiting for that game. And yeah, some games, of course, they're not ever going to come out, but go, like I am ready for a game to be talked about in the current year and for it to come out next year, because I'm tired of just being yanked and janked around. And as someone that's keeping up with the gaming industry too, it gets pretty exhausting trying to figure out what's rumor, what's fact, because you got to decipher a lot of these articles and videos and stuff and what's actually accurate. You got to listen to the earnings calls to kind of see what their expectations are for forecasting for some of this stuff, at least for the bigger titles. And it's just frustrating. So again, it's like, if you're going to announce a game, by golly, like, please, don't don't just give it to us and then just not have it released in 3-4 years. Like, that's getting ridiculous, because a lot changes by then. So if it's what I appreciate from software is that when a game is going to release, we get it usually within 12 months or less. And honestly, that's really, really nice. Now, maybe there's a teaser trailer, right? Okay, that can be within a couple of years. That's fine. But, like, they don't wait forever, and I appreciate that. They're respectful of your emotions and your time. So, because, yeah, if you wait too long, the excitement dies down, more stuff comes in, and, well, that's the end of that. No one really cares about your game anymore. And I'm afraid this is actually going to happen with the Haunted Chocolatier, because most of you probably have no idea what I'm talking about at this point. And for the Haunted Chocolatier, or don't even remember. But yeah, apparently that game is still coming. But again, no release date. Let's talk about Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake. This is we're going to go over the PC requirements. So for best settings, you're looking at RTX 3080. Close to best settings, this is roughly $500 to $1,000 right now with what you can buy. Also, you're looking at an i7 8700K is recommended, or an AMD Ryzen 5 3600. For your CPU, and then of course 1,000 gigabytes on an SSD. So not horrible. There's definitely some money there, and even the 3080s, they're actually getting pretty expensive at this point anyway, whether it's a Super or TA or whatever. And then you look at the 40 series, and yeah, they're they're expensive too. So of course there's the AMD side as well, which are definitely cheaper in some respects. But man, yeah, these graphics, these games are really, and this is even just a remake, and this is not like an open world game necessarily. Open area, yes, I would agree with that. Open area type of environment, but there's nothing crazy going on in most of the scenes, right? And except maybe some of the cutscenes and stuff, I could see those being pretty hardy on some of the action, or some of the AOE as well. There's definitely some of that, like fighting Volgan and his electricity going off and like shooting bullets and everything. That'll be pretty fun to do again. But yeah, we're looking at for best settings, we're looking at the 40 series of cards already, and that's pretty crazy. Let's talk about the Metro series. Well, more or less, let's talk about the devs. So the devs are actually rebranding with a new IP. So I'm going to be keeping track of this one. You can guarantee that, because I love the Metro series. They're great. Metro 2033 and Exodus, they were great games. So from 4A Games, they're now going to be called Reburn. Their new IP is La Quirerma. Sorry if I mispronounced that. That's not my intention. This is a future sci-fi solo and or co-op game, if you wish to play it that way. The story is basically a PM private military group down on their luck, and there's exoskeletons, there's player abilities, modern weaponry, probably some a little sci-fi advanced futuristic stuff in there too. And that's generally what we know about the game. There's also some screenshots out there if you'd like to take a look. Again, it's La Quirerma. That is Quimera. So you can go ahead and look that up if you'd like. No release date, of course, no trailer. There's nothing like that. There's just screenshots at this point But Reburn will keep their same principles that they've had as a studio from the Metro series. And there's still many of the devs there, many of the artists from Metro, and they're still going to continue to be at Reburn. So there's really not a lot of changes there, so we can probably trust that this is roughly the same company. They are also likely to be a little bit bigger at this point, because, yeah, the Metro series has sold pretty well for them, and I imagine this is going to also be a bigger project. It looks like a bigger project, to be honest. And then the fact, too, that it's also going to be a co-op game. This will be their first one as far as I know, and, yeah, hopefully they can do this well. So, yeah, Lequimera basically asks 2 questions as their principles for the game. One of the questions is, how could we end up in a dystopian built from the modern world? Which that sounds pretty interesting. Like the game is kind of walk through that through the story. And then, does tech progression alone elevate social standing? And I think that's an interesting question too. So we're going to take a look at both of these questions, and they're going to flesh these out to kind of, and that's how they also did Metro. Like, what does it look like in a apocalyptic world in Russia? Like, what would that look like? Well, everybody tunneled into the subways and caves and wherever they could possibly be. And then, yeah, they also answered the question. It's just like, what if we had an alien race that wasn't actually trying to hurt us, but trying to help us? Like, what would you decide as a player? So, yeah, the Metro series, in my opinion, has done really good at fleshing out some of the immersion, and so I'm very curious and also somewhat excited about this. And 2, I just want more co-ops. I think a lot of us do. Okay, the crazy, like, sweating in your chair, sitting down type of gameplay, for a lot of us older folks like myself, going to be 35 this year, it's getting tiresome. And the general age of gamers, as an average, is actually going up. So we're waiting for the next generation to actually come in to lower that number down some. But the millennials was actually a pretty big generation, and that's showing in the average age bracket for gamers. And there's a lot of us in our 30s and 40s that actually still play. So yeah, Lequimera, we'll actually see how this is. Let's talk about the Pokemon presentation. This was on the 27th, and honestly, I give it a D+, or a 6 out of 10. And let's go over why. There was a ton of Pokemon Gacha game events, cosmetics, and etc. for the first 9 minutes, which is basically half of the presentation. It's like, great. That's great. So they were doing events and cosmetics and stuff for Pokemon Go, Pocket, and Unite. Again, they can do that, of course. There's also Scarlet and Violet. We are getting 9 new Pokemon. I believe it's 9. I think they showed 8, and then also another one off to the side. So yeah, I believe it's 9. And this is cool because this is actual content that they're providing. So that's nice. We also finally got to see our first real game, which is Pokemon Champions. This is going to be a battle arena game, again, which we haven't had in some time. No release date yet, but this is going to be cross-platform with Switch and mobile. And I imagine, too, this will also be on Switch, too, as well. So cross-gen, cross-platform, I'm sure we can assume that. They're also creating a new type of feature, I'll call it that, called Pokemon Home. This is where you're actually going to have access to your monsters from Go and Scarlet and Violet and other games in the series that you can use in Pokemon Champions. So this is really cool. They're going to take your libraries of Pokemon that you've captured from multiple games and allow you to access them all in Pokemon Champions. And so for, roughly kind of the first time, we're going to have the broadest reach of multiple generations of Pokemon that are all going to be accessible and that you can fight and level up and evolve, and that's honestly kind of sweet. I'm excited about that. Plus, they're pushing the entire cross-platform thing. They're also bringing in mobile, so the player base should honestly be pretty huge for this. There's also a lot of Pokemon that are going to be available for this, and I hope too it's not just 1v1 player. I hope it's maybe 2v2 or 3v3 if they can actually do that for the game. I think that would be kind of cool. But yeah, we'll have to see until release date. They didn't show any of that, but I would hope they would actually do something like that to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more tactful, and be able to make some friends out of your enemies, and then be able to play as a team against some other people and have a blast doing that. So yeah, this honestly looked pretty sweet. So that was pretty cool. Let's also talk about Pokemon Legends Z to A. This is going to be late 2025. Again, I also assume that this is also going to be for Switch and the Switch 2. But yeah, this is an open world city environment. Luminous City. I'm probably saying that incorrectly. I apologize. No multiplayer, as far as we know. The city is with the story. The city is basically going under redevelopment, and there's going to be a place for wild Pokemon to be. Like a lot of the language that they use in the trailer is that basically, Pokemon are kind of people too, and we need to take care of them. And so they have these parks. And this is the thing that really threw me off is that in the gameplay, they actually show you going to one of these Pokemon parks that have wild Pokemon, and you just beating the crap out of them and enslaving them in your Pokeball. And it's like, I don't really think the the wild parks, let's call them, are really for the Pokemon. I think they're really for the player. And the thing that kind of gets me worried about this game is that they're going to break some of the immersion of the adventuring in the game. Not that you can't have an adventure in a city, but it's like you're not going to have forests, you're not going to have greenlands, you're not going to have islands to try to get to. You're not going to have any of this other type of stuff really. It's just everything is going to be locked into the city. And I really hope I'm wrong about that. Now, the city itself does look pretty expansive, pretty big. You're going to have one tower in the middle, and from some of the screenshots, you're actually pretty far away. Like, it's going to take you some time to actually get to the tower, and then hopefully there's a whole another side extending as a radius to the other end of the city. And hopefully the city is really, really big. There's also multiple wild parks as well that are all numbered. So I don't know if these are going to be kind of like level capped in a way, or if like number one wild park is going to have kind of like lower or weaker Pokemon versus like another park that's a level 6, by example, that are going to have beefier Pokemon. Or maybe now you'll be able to capture like an Alakazam or a Beedrill or something like that, which would be kind of cool. But again, I just feel like it takes the adventure out of the game, which is frustrating for me personally. Also, there's going to be 6 main NPCs that are going to help evolve the campaign and the quests for the game, and exploring around the city. Some of these we're going to recognize, some of these we aren't. And it does look like there's still going to be some exploration. We're also going to be able to get on top of rooftops and stuff like that. We're also going to be able to, of course, battle other Pokemon and also other trainers. Now, again, this is not multiplayer, but like trainers as in other NPCs in the game. And all of this is actually going to now become real time. So we're not going to have turn-based battles anymore. We're going to focus on real-time battles where your Pokemon is going to be more saddled to you like a sidecar. And while you move, they move. And so when there's an attack from an opponent, you can move out of the way and get your Pokemon out of the way, right? And then you can command your Pokemon to attack. And yeah, there's going to be some more kind of fluid dynamics to combat there, which I think is also a pretty cool feature. But again, I'm just not excited about walking into a park and just beating the frick out of every Pokemon and capturing them all, and because hopefully they have kind of an idea on how to change up what's available in the park, because you don't want to have to keep going to the park and being like, is my Pokemon there? Nope. Next day, is he there? Nope. And that's going to kind of suck, because if you're looking for a particular Pokemon, we all know that basically there's certain areas that you kind of roam around in, and you keep roaming in those areas until you finally get to your Pokemon that you're looking for. But now we just have parks, which sounds a lot less exciting in my opinion. Again, no caves, no forests, no grasslands, no abandoned factory or whatever, or power plant. It's just parks. And that's ultimately pretty frustrating for me. We do also get something called Mega Evolution, which doesn't look permanent. It just looks more or less like, hey, you're failing. Congratulations, we're going to give you a cop-out called Mega Evolution. And you'll be able to basically beef up your Pokemon for the battle. And then they're going to, be able to win for you. And, congratulations. So that's kind of like making it easier to win. And that'll be a more casual kind of like fun experience for folks. And again, this is just a hot take of mine. You don't have to take my word for it. Let's actually see what the game's like during ZA. And if I'm incorrect, hey, I'll go ahead and eat that. That's totally okay. But yeah, thinking about the older games that that I've played since the 2000s, 90s and 2000s, it's like, man, there used to be some real adventure in Pokemon. And what I wish they would do is just let you be Ash Ketchum and run through Ash's story in a 3D environment where you get to meet Misty and Brock and the other characters, and you get to go through also the Johto League, and like you get to go through all of this stuff. Even some side quests that you get to go against Team Rocket. I mean, why not? They could totally build something like that, and I think that would sell like hotcakes. Instead, they've done some other different IP and have focused on a different thing of characters, which they're still expanding on. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But man, we're down to just capturing in parks now. That's a real letdown because I feel like it really takes away from the excitement and the adventure of the game. Because now it's just like just go to a park. Yeah, there's less exploration, there's less incentive there, and it just takes away from the experience. So that's my take on it. Feels like too, it's just kind of some of the gameplay that we've already seen. There is also a day-night cycle for Z to A, and but yeah, I feel like Game Freak still really needs to innovate. They need to bring what made Pokemon exciting, and ZA for me just it's not it. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Let's talk about Monster Hunter Wilds. Released February 28th, and even with the day one patch, it still runs like garbage. The day one patch was officially released for each platform, yet no notes yet for the patch of what actually is in it. There's kind of some differences, but roughly this is 18 gigabytes of information. So they're pretty big, but even with the patch, this still runs really bad on PC. Steam reviews show a 48% score with 35,000 reviews. So yeah, it runs like hot garbage. And at the start of the game is, of course, the desert. There's less trees. Like this should be fairly easy to render, etc. And further into the game, it's also going to be, we're going to have more complex biomes to actually render with forests or grasslands or whatever, and mountains and volcanoes, etc. And so yeah, it's not going to run better. It's going to run worse. And I think the viewpoint of what Monster Hunter Wilds is going to change as people continue to play the game, as the frame rate and frame gen continue to get worse. And even with reviews that are like 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 stars on Xbox, they're just like, man, it runs pretty poorly. So I'm sure they will fix it at some point, but I think it's also showing that the RE engine is maybe not good for Monster Hunter Wilds. Because the RE engine is not really made for an open world environment, okay? It's made for Resident Evil, which is the complete opposite. And it works great for that. But Monster Hunter Wilds maybe needs its own engine, or maybe they just need to go to Unreal at this point. But that has its own caveat and its own challenges too. You'd have to learn a new engine and all of that, and I understand that. Plus, it'd be expensive to actually just make a brand new engine. But I think in the long run, it would be better because if they keep pushing this kind of stuff out, it's going to wear down the player base, and some people are just going to tap out. And that is really kind of like the last thing that we want, right? So yeah, it's pretty frustrating that it's this unoptimized, because it's probably one of the most unoptimized games. Someone even said that this reminded them of Redfall, which was really unoptimized. Okay, it was really not good. It was a mess. And too, even with the patches and stuff, it was never really fixed. And we've already also had patches too for PlayStation 5 and Xbox, as far as I know, but we haven't seen necessarily reviews on these too much. But again, people are still saying that, yeah, even with the patch, even just with playing the game in the desert, etc., whatever, it is still a mess. And even with Series 40 cars, like a 4090, it still runs really bad on PC. Now, people really enjoy the game for the most part. Some people still complain about that. It's just kind of monster slashing now. You're not really like hunting or tracking the monster. Like they've lessened the experience on that. Some reviews too, also on Xbox and on Steam, are saying that it's just not as challenging as it used to be, and so that kind of frustrates them. Like it feels like the game is eased for a more casual audience. And yeah, ultimately that's what happens when you're trying to expand your player base. But there's also there's also ways too where you can make the game actually more challenging. And then other people too, not as many, but there's still some people out there talking about how garbage the multiplayer is, and also talking about even crashes of their game on Xbox and also on Steam. So, yeah, this is not a good release. I think the woohoo is going to wear off for quite a few people. And again, we talked about all this. We talked about how the monsters just kind of feel like a hack and slash. There, you don't have tracking anymore. The weapons are basically the same. The gear really hasn't changed that much. The exploration is kind of dead in the world. The map's really good. The map's a wonderful feature that's 3D and everything. And then, too, the optimization of the beta. I had people even in my comments for the beta review that I did, bashing me for, and Lion too, for just basically being like, dude, you're saying it's a beta. It's like, well, yeah, it's the same assets. It's the same engine. Like, there's really not a lot of differences here, and it runs like hot garbage. And even with the day one patch, it still runs like hot garbage. So my suggestion is that if you haven't picked it up yet, you actually take time to wait. Because, again, we shouldn't be paying $70 for hot garbage. And the game itself is good. Like, there's not really an issue there. But there's also some other problems, too. Is that we only have one monster that's coming within the next 3 months. And that's also not normal. We usually get several monsters, 3, 4, 5, 6 within, the first 2-3 months of, like, Worlds or Rise. And this time they're really slowing down the content for actual content in the future. So we can probably wait for the expansion to be maybe even at the end of this year, or maybe even next year at this point. And again, if that's how optimized it is, they really need to work on fixing the game. And maybe that's why there's not a ton of extra content coming right now, because they're just needing to work on fixing the base game, which again is pretty frustrating. I will also be linking multiple videos that you can watch the reviews, watch the performance issues, and all of that stuff. So I'll link IGN, which gave it an 8. I'll also link OhNoIt'sAlex, which he does a pretty good job of actually showing what's going on with all of the components on his computer and what he suggests. I'll also link Digital Foundry, and I'll also link Lukas Stevens with his thoughts and opinions of the review code that he had. So, and then, yeah, too, if you also want to watch mine, it's there. It's just about, 9 days ago, I think. It's not too far back there in the log of videos. Metacritic right now shows it at like in the 80s and 90s for the game. But yeah, user score on Steam is 48. On Xbox right now, it's about a 4.3 out of 5. So yeah, people generally do like the game, but boy, it was not ready to release. And that truly is frustrating. Steam charts, as I have hiccups, SteamDB shows that the launch peak of Monster Hunter Wilds is 1.3 million. So a lot of people bought this game. A lot of people. Also, PlayStation Time Tracker shows that it's number 14 in the last 7 days. So it's only had basically 1.5 days to start accumulating that data, and it's already number 14 in the last 7 days against the top 100 games. So yeah, a lot of people also bought it on PlayStation. It's also got hundreds of reviews also on Xbox already. So yeah, a lot of people have bought this. They definitely made their money. But this is where I do get concerned. It's like next time are more people just going to wait? Because again, if you're buying hot garbage for $70 at launch, maybe you spent $100. I don't know. It's your money. But boy, I don't want to spend $70 for hot garbage. I'd rather wait for the best version of the game. And even the Series S does not run good. PC on Steam does not run good. Frame rate is all over the place. Series X does fairly well, somewhere between 50 to 60 frames in most cases. PlayStation 5 base runs, roughly kind of around 50, and then sometimes 40s. And then PlayStation 5 Pro runs it somewhere between 60 and 70 frames unlocked. So, yeah. So, I mean, those Series X and PlayStation 5 Pro are going to be the best places to play. If you're okay with 30 frames, that's great. I'm not sure if these are actually locked. I hope they are for the console version, because that can be pretty frustrating for some people. Boom! There's my crash. And, but yeah, it's crazy that we have something that's this unoptimized from a studio that has a pedigree like Capcom. And yeah, something's got to change here because I don't want to get to the point where we keep accepting the trash. Okay, remember microtransactions and battle passes? We all hate it now. Can we just not start this new trend of just having garbage trash games that aren't ready for launch? Which we've had for years already. I mean, I've been complaining about this since like 2017. And the big hot topic then was loot boxes. But yeah, we're through loot boxes, and now the monetization is actually worse than loot boxes, which is hard to believe. But it's just like we should not accept whatever we accept at launch. They're just going to continue to do. We've seen that with Madden. We've seen that with any publisher or company. And like, folks, these are not your friends. They don't care about you necessarily. There's a few that maybe care about their broad audience, yes. But like, if they can get away with it, they will. They will. And it's like, what's shocking about that? They're people just like you and I. And if you don't trust people, why do you trust these companies? There's basically two that I trust. One's controlled by a publisher that I don't trust, so there's that. And then the other one, so far, has put out really good stuff for the last 30 years. And that's From Software. That's really the only one. The other company that I really like and enjoy is Motive. Because again, the Dead Space remake was so good. Star Wars Squadron Leader was so good. Again, the immersion aspect of the game. We've been having some wonderful stuff also from Capcom too with Resident Evil. They've been making some wonderful games, but boy, this is not a shining light for them. Monster Hunter is a mess, and they really need to fix it. So, link of those down below if you want some more opinions and also just to see. But yeah, they're all actually quite interesting, and I think they do overall, all of them put together. I think they do a great job of actually showing realistically what the game is, and that's ultimately what we're here for, including my own beta review that I did with Lion. We are here to present it to you as it is, not present it to your feelings. And if that's something that you need, maybe this channel isn't for you, and that's okay. But I'm not going to change my view simply because people are complaining in the comments or bashing the video or whatever. My goal is to present the facts as I see them, as unbiasedly as I can. Because I don't want you guys to make a bad call. I know you guys work hard for your money, and I also don't want you to waste your money. I know it's not my life, whatever, but hey, I still care about you guys. If I didn't, I wouldn't even have this channel. Because, yeah, this channel isn't for me. While I get some stuff out of it, I enjoy it. Okay, I enjoy the connections that I'm making with people. I enjoy the conversations that I'm having with people. But ultimately, this whole channel is for you guys. So keep that in mind when, you see another demo, when you see another beta review, is I'm just trying to be as objective as I can so that you guys can make the best decision. Let's talk about Yakuza Hawaii. It's actually doing pretty well, but not selling as much as we would think. So this released February 1st. They've had roughly about a little over a week now at this point, week and a half. And Metacritic shows it's 79 to 85 for a score from the critics, and users are again putting it in the 80s. So those are actually pretty well correlated. PlayStation Time Tracker shows that it's number 25 after a week. I'm sure it's definitely going to kick down a little bit after Monster Hunter Wilds came out. So we're probably in the high 20s at this point out of 100, which is still doing pretty good. SteamDB shows 87% score out of 3,000 reviews, which isn't too many, but hey, there's definitely some there. And then the launch peak for the weekend was 22,000 playing the game on Steam. So I'm not sure if there's actually enough interest to make Sega enough profit with Yakuza Hawaii. So some people that I've seen is that it's like, yeah, it's fun, it's more of the same, but the pirate battles in the arena and stuff with your ship, it's a fun kind of new mini game, but that's kind of what it is it's not really gameplay. It's more like kind of a mini game, and it's kind of a little frustrating. There is actually a demo if you want to try it before you actually buy, and I suggest you guys actually do that so that you guys can actually get a feel for the game. But for those that have you been following the series, you actually are Mojima which washes up on the beach, has no memory of what's going on, and then basically, again, it gets to engage with the town in Hawaii and gets to be a pirate. And yeah, pretty wacky, pretty insane. I definitely think it's a more fun experience than Skull and Bones, but maybe not quite as fun as Assassin's Creed Black Flag. But again, these are two completely different style of games with the gameplay and stuff. And the fighting styles, yeah, you'll recognize and will generally feel the same. But yeah, if you like Yakuza, you'll probably enjoy this. And I plan to pick it up at some point when it's on sale because, boy, I got plenty of other things to pay for. And hey, I feel broke just like most people. So, but yeah, so far it's doing pretty good, but I'm just not sure if it's actually selling enough. So yeah, we'll see. We'll keep track of that as time goes on if there's data for it. So a game company for mobile is Niantic. They're actually selling Pokemon Go to a Saudi Arabia company called Scopely for $3.5 billion. So I was like, wow, that's really expensive. Well, comes to find out they're actually selling their entire video division, their video game division. So there's also some other assets and games in there as well. But can Niantic do that? Like, they've paid for the licensing fees for Pokemon, I'm sure. But is Nintendo okay with the sale? Do they have any say legally? I don't know. I was kind of shocked by that. And will the sale actually go through? That hasn't been confirmed yet. But yeah, I'm kind of curious what Nintendo has to say. And then, yeah, they're actually selling Pokemon Go. So they're looking to get out, I guess, of making video games entirely. Because, yeah, they're just selling their entire division, which means all of the IPs go with it. And yeah, I wonder what Niantic is going to do now. Maybe they're just going to be a publisher. That's possible. Yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, generally they make mobile games, and maybe they're just ready to get out of the space. Maybe there are too many restrictions with having the Pokemon license. Maybe it's too expensive at this point. I don't know. We don't have any of those deals. But yeah, Pokemon Go looks like it's going to be owned by somebody else. And that's pretty interesting. So yeah, we'll also have to see how that works with a new owner and with the Pokemon home system for Pokemon Champions when that game comes out. So hopefully there's no issues there. All right, we're almost done here, folks. Tales of the Shire is going to be kind of like a cozy game, you know, where you're a hobbit and hobbiton and hopping around and smelling the flowers. But it's delayed again until July 29. So this is the second time, as far as I know, that it's actually been delayed. This is also actually a pretty big delay for the game. And yeah, this doesn't necessarily actually sound good. Personally, I like Stardew, My Time at Portia, and Winds of Anthos better than what I'm seeing on the screen. These are looking more appealing to me. And I look at Tales of the Shire, and I feel like it's just like, hey, it's Lord of the Rings, buy it. Like, it's more of kind of a brand sell than anything. Hopefully they didn't pay too much for the licensing, but I'm sure they did. But yeah, delaying it again, every time there's a delay, it just costs more money because you still got to pay all of the salaries. You still got to keep the lights on. Like, it's very expensive, actually. And it's not cheap. Now, again, this isn't like a huge studio, but yeah, we'll have to see if this actually comes out on July 29. Because I think this was supposed to come out in 2024. And now we're looking at the second, the 7th month of 2025 is when it's supposed to release. And yeah, they could delay it again. And again, as they get closer to just more and more games that are going to stagger their sales or take them away, like GTA 6, they may just delay again. But it's like, if this game doesn't sell and they keep delaying, they just keep pumping more money into it, the studio may not actually survive this. And I hope that doesn't happen. But there's also a lot of cozy game competition out there. So there was someone that did actually get to take kind of like a closed beta or like alpha gameplay look at the game, got to play it a little bit, and they just said it is severely, well, not severely, I shouldn't put words in their mouth, but it is very shallow of a game. There's just not a lot of substance there. It's lacking a lot, and yeah, they definitely need that extra dev time to actually make the game better and more enticing. Let's talk about Sony. So Barrett, an ex-employee of Bungie that was also the director of Marathon for a while before he was fired because of, misconduct. And, well, Barrett has been saying that he was fired unjustly. He's basically suing Sony for $200 million because they also didn't pay him some money But he also, broke his own contract for his misconduct. And, Sony isn't playing around, so they actually released the receipts. That's bad. That's bad. And this is public now. And so, yeah, Barrett is also going through his own case. I highly doubt he's actually going to win this. And even if he does, it is complete public opinion now, and includes, of course, too, anybody else that may want to hire him. And, man, this really is not going to look good. Of course, usually this is just where companies deal with it behind closed doors. They settle. But, yeah, it doesn't look like Sony's actually doing this. And I think they're tired of kind of playing around and just... They want this to be over, and they want to set an example. So they are. So, yeah, good luck, Barrett. You just totally signed your death warrant, in my opinion. And, oh, boy. Good luck winning. Let's talk, too, about KingMakers Early Access. This is actually a game that looks really fun. Think of Knights in Shining Armor with an AK-47. I am so stoked for this. And Early Access was supposed to be at the end of 2024. Didn't happen. It was supposed to be in Q1 of 2025. Well, that's not happening either, which I had a sneaking suspicion. Now it's Q2 of 2025. I want to play this game. And, man, I hope they don't mess it up. So, of course, if it is going to be good, I would rather have them delay it. But, boy, if it's just going to be hot garbage... might as well just rip off the Band-Aid like Ubisoft should with Assassin's Creed Shadows and just get it over with. But yeah, I really want this game to be fun, and I really want to show it to you guys, even though it'd be mouse and keyboard. Well, there's got to be a way I can actually hook it up to my laptop. I'll have to figure that out. But anyway, yeah, KingMakers is delayed again. So I will show it to you when it comes out. Also, Sony is finally lowering the MSRP price of the PSVR 2. Woo! That's absolutely what we want, right? Not the Pro or anything else. But yeah, we're like they've raised the prices in some cases. But yeah, they're actually lowering the PSVR 2 price from $550 to $400. So pretty big discount. But again, $400 for studios that are closing, for games that aren't really that great. There's maybe a few out there, but are you going to buy something for $400 just to play 2 or 3 games? Not me, man. I'm going to spend my money somewhere else, like Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta. Absolutely, amen. I am going to put my money right there, or put it into the next Armored Core game if they do one, or, quote, Elden Ring 2, or whatever the next game is going to be, or a Bloodborne remaster if they ever do that, or like an entire bundle of all of the Ace Combat games. Man, would I pay money for that. But yeah, buying an accessory that's $400 plus the games, and I don't know. Good luck, Sony. Good luck. All right, lastly, let's talk about the games coming in March. So you're also, of course, hearing this March 1st. This is what's coming out. Age of Mythology Retold for PlayStation 5 on the 4th. Fragpunk for free to play game, on the 6th. Split Fiction. Woo! My wife and I are going to be playing this. We're going to have a little bit of practice, but yeah, we'll show you some gameplay. And this will also be on the 6th. Wow, that's in less than a week. That's crazy. Rise of the Ronin is going to be coming to Steam on the 11th. WWE 2K25. I don't think anybody really cares about that series much anymore. Plus the whole Paradise Island thing. Well, that sounds horrible. Just monetization to death. That's coming out on the 14th. Basically all platforms. MLB The Show 2025 is coming out on the 18th. All platforms. Assassin's Creed Shadows will be on the 20th. Good luck. Xenoblade Chronicles X is coming out for Nintendo Switch on the 20th. Killing Floor 3 is on the 25th. All platforms. Atomfall is going to be on the 27th. All platforms. Also on Game Pass. Ultimate and PC. I think it's also PC. And then Kazan, the first Berserker, is coming also on the 27th. I also have a demo for that if you'd actually like to see it. It's roughly, 40 or so minutes. It's chaptered as well, so you can skip around to the settings and load out and some gameplay and like the little boss fight they got that at least, well, sort of, wink, wink. It's as far as I could get. But this is also coming out on all platforms. So I'll try to remember to also link that down below as well. So we got quite a few games actually coming out this month. And man, I just keep thinking that it'll slow down a little bit. But holy smokes, we got tons coming into the gaming industry, and it's a mess. And Oh boy, we love to cover it all right here for you on a podcast, whether you're getting through work, heading home, going on a long trip, whatever. We're here to fill your time and to make the passage of it easier and less painful. So with that, folks, thanks for tuning in. You can always find me at Gaming Garbage 22 over at YouTube. We also have playlists over there, so gaming news, deep dives, playthroughs, reviews, etc. It's all basically there. Use the playlist to get around. You can also find me over at Twitch too, which is of course where I stream everything, and then I use the files and boat them over to YouTube. But yeah, if you want to see everything right away for free, you can go ahead and follow me over at Twitch. Now, also for the gaming news and the deep dives, I don't look at my chats. That's because it's going to interrupt my train of thought and be a mess with my ADHD or whatever I have unofficially. But the playthroughs and stuff, I do watch my chats, and yeah, go ahead and hop in and say hi. And yeah, if I've said hi in the chat already, it means I'm paying attention. So that'll be one thing that you guys can look for. What else? Oh, yeah. Enjoy the weekend. Take some rest, or whenever your weekend is. My weekend isn't always on the weekend either. But, take time to just take a breath. The weather is getting nicer. Go for a walk. Take some time to go see some folks. I got a friend coming later this month that I haven't seen in a few years, and I'm excited. And whatever needs to happen, we're just going to make it work. And I think when we have that mentality, our life is fuller and richer. Am I going to be tired? Yes. Is life going to be going on with a family of 2.5 plus marriage? Yes. Plus work? Yes. But when we take time for things that really matter, we don't care how much it costs, how much energy it takes. It's worth it every time. So I encourage you guys to invest a little bit more in your life and do things that really matter at the end of the day. Just put a little bit more work into it. And with that, folks, I'll see you guys on the next one.